which is more important? Flesh and blood or fabric and clothing? Which of those seems more important? Which one has more value? And I know it seems like a really weird question, but it's not always exactly a clear answer. My dad is a nurse, and so he's had to work in situations where the treatment he gives to a patient has to be according to the patient's treatment wishes. That's a pretty typical point in healthcare ethics. But when he was working in an ER, those things didn't always line up. Let me tell you what I mean. I was walking through our house at one point and I came across this pair of scissors, about that big, but on the tip of one of the blades there was a flat section. It was like flattened out with a plastic covering on it. I was like, what is this for? So I asked him and he said, oh, those are fabric scissors. I was like, that's weird. They look like medical scissors. He said, oh, they are. He said, those scissors are for cutting the clothes off of patients who come into the ER and we need to get immediate access to their wounds. That little plastic piece on the end is so that you can run that end under the clothing without catching the person's skin and cutting their skin. Now let's consider this hypothetical situation. Patient comes in who's close to death, severe wounds. Maybe they were in a car crash or something. And this lady is in the group and she's wearing this really, really expensive dress. And it turns out that she is a model. And that maybe the dress belongs to the modeling company. And it's really important to the company and to the patient that this dress is preserved. Let's heighten the example. Let's say that this dress was made by a really prominent designer and she was wearing it to model it in photos to show off this designer's masterpiece work. But she shows up and they say, she's unconscious. We need this dress off of her now so that we can get to her wounds. We can't just have her take the dress off. We're not going to be able to get it off of her effectively. We need to just cut it and be done. Well, clearly that goes against the patient's wishes. In that case, I'll be honest, like we can't know what the patient's wishes are because she's unconscious. But also in that case, the medical providers don't care what the patient's wishes are. Because we know if she had come in any other case, if she had walked in there herself and said, hey, I've got this problem that I think I need help with. Any of the doctors would say, oh, okay, well, we're going to need to get to that wound. Can you take the dress off? And of course, if she's able, she's going to take the dress off. Maybe if she couldn't move, they might say, well, we're going to need to get the dress off, and they could work something else out. Like, in that situation, there's communication that can happen. But in the first case, where it's an emergency situation, nobody's going to think twice about the importance of that dress. Why? Because the person in the dress, the flesh and blood, is far more important than the dress. I recently came across this video. Matt Fradd had a priest on his podcast recently who is an exorcist. And he has this little snippet that he's talking about demons doing really crazy, weird, and very unnatural things. The priest talks about this person, like, their head spinning. He said, now, of course, the head didn't go all the way around, but like they looked over their shoulder and they turned their head around way farther than a human. Like, you couldn't just be that flexible. And Matt Fradd was asking this priest, like, how do you not react to that? Like, how is that not just bizarre to you? He said, well, what the demon is trying to do in that case is distract me. See, he wants the attention. He says, hey, look at me. Look at the crazy, amazing things I can do. But the priest's concern needs to be on God, in God's power. So he said, that's just what the demon tries to do, is get me to focus on it and not on God. What that interview made me think of is that that's kind of how everything is. any kind of sin, any kind of temptation, it's the enemy, the devil. They're trying to get us to pay attention to them or to something else and not on God. Because God's really where our attention needs to be. You know, I talked in my last video about how our relationship with God is super important to get past all the struggles that we have here on earth. So the more we pay attention to devils and demons and all the things they want us to pay attention to, the less we can focus on our relationship with God, because we're not spending time with Him. We're not working with Him on our struggles. With dysphoria, it may not be our clothing or what we're wearing or how we dress. It may not be those things, but there is still a distraction, and it's often with ourselves. We're so focused. Well, no, it's not even. It's not just on ourselves. It's on others and comparing ourselves. I remember when I first went to college, I would see these people who are like really fit, and I'd see them and I would go, if only I had that body. Like, if only I could look like that. It turned into this jealousy, something that trans communities refer to as gender envy. You know, you see somebody else living very, very fulfilled in their own being, and it makes us really uncomfortable in our own. You know, that's just it. That's the distraction. When we're not paying attention to God and who God means for us to be and who we can be in relationship with God, it's focusing on other people and how we don't have what other people have. So what's more important? Flesh and blood or fabric and clothing? And of course, I don't mean just fabric and clothes, but I mean our presentation, how we feel to ourselves and how we feel other people view us. What's more important, flesh and blood or the imagination of identity, of fabric and clothing? What's more important, who we really are and what we're really made for, or who we think we are and what we think we're made for? Hey guys, thanks for taking your time to watch through the video. I know I didn't exactly answer a lot of questions. There were some dead ends in there. I'll get to those in future videos. So, if you liked this, please give it a like. I really appreciate it. It helps us both out. If you want to see more, if you want to get some of those questions that may have been brought up answered, hit subscribe, check out some of my other videos, leave a comment. I love to hear what you guys think. And who knows, maybe I'll make a video responding to your guys' comments in the future or answering some questions that you guys might have. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.